Hello, welcome to another video. Today I will explain how I study German vocabulary. Actually, this video can help you if you are learning any other language, but the reason why I kind of specified German vocabulary is that I will give examples mostly from my German materials. I think you should still watch this video because I will show you how to create a vocabulary template on Notion. If you particularly have problems with creating one, I will just show some of my German materials and I will kind of explain in detail how I study and revise vocabulary. I think you may remember those two from my other videos because those were my German vocabulary notebooks. This one is really a vocabulary notebook. This one was a writing notebook, so I will explain what they mean and I will also show why I recently switched to digital notes instead of having German vocabulary notebooks. After all this time, my German level is B2 and currently I'm studying B2.3 course, mainly on a platform that's called Lingoda. If you are planning to start learning German or if you have been learning German and lost at some point, you can check my recent video about my German materials. Those are everything that I have used and that I'm still using while learning German. If you are still a fan of real notebooks, like I also like writing and I still have a Dutch and Russian notebook, and I thought that like having digital notes is cool, but I can't go on having digital notes on Dutch since I still have to learn this language and get adapted to everything, and that's why I have an actual notebook. And in Russian, I like writing Russian because it looks really cool, and also I don't have the keyboard stickers in Russian, and whenever I want to write something, I just press the wrong letters and it's so annoying. That's why I have an actual Russian notebook and not a digital one. When I was a beginner, I used this notebook like A1 to B1 and there are literally everything. Grammar and dialogues, everything is in this German notebook, and I actually recommend you having something like this if you are a beginner because, as I said, as in my case with Dutch, you have to get used to language. And that was my vocabulary notebook, like I think you can see. Those things are literally a vocabulary list. That's so pointless. That's so pointless. I don't know why I did that. And right now I will show you how I fixed this thing. Another German notebook. This is basically a phrase notebook and vocabulary highlighted. Like, this is the genius way of learning vocabulary. If you still want to have a vocabulary notebook kind of thing, but if you want that to be useful, please use this. And right now you may be asking why I actually switched to Notion instead of having these cute German notebooks. So the reason is that at B2 level I have been learning a lot of complex vocabulary and grammar constantly, so I was really overwhelmed, and sometimes I really observed that I was skipping some grammar and important vocabulary just because I was tired of writing. To make a comparison, I can say that my B2.1 course that I completed with an actual notebook took me ages to complete because I was always putting off new German lessons and I was studying once a month because it was too tiring to write every other thing. But then at my B2.2 course I switched to Notion. I took all of my notes online and maybe it took me 2 months to complete the whole level. If you are not a beginner and if you are learning the language, if you are learning a lot of complex vocabulary and if you want to study more regularly, I can recommend using something like this. Some people also may be wondering how I'm studying German, like what is the resource of this notes that you are making or which materials you use to learn German. I receive this question a lot, or whenever I share about my B2 class on Instagram, some people are wondering the material that I'm using, like how I created those chapters, how I'm studying B2 level, where I found all those lessons. So basically I have been using Lingoda to learn German. That's kind of my main resource. That's where I completed B2.1 and B2.2, and right now that's where I'm taking B2.3 classes. Lingoda is basically an online language school where you can learn some languages including German, and that's why I'm mainly using this platform. Lingoda is way more flexible than other language learning platforms because for each lesson on Lingoda you can choose your teacher and you always get to study with different students, which are like, there are always around 4 or 5 people in each class. So you get a lot of conversation practice and you learn about a great variety of topics on Lingoda. That's why I always have problems with my vocabulary learning and I get exhausted writing everything. Lingoda Lingoda recently introduced a concept that's called sprint. So there are basically two types of sprint, which are sprint and super sprint, where you take either 15 or 30 lessons a month for 2 months. At the end, if you complete all the requirements, you can take your money back, all of it for super sprint and half of it for the regular sprint. If you want to challenge yourself while learning German, you can use the link in the description to start learning with Lingoda Sprint. And also, if you use the code that you see on the screen, you can receive some discount at your registration. So to go on with our video, I kinda invite you to see my Notion. I think you may be familiar with my Notion because I have shared it in some videos. And here we are going to my German page, and when we come to my German page, you are going to see a lot of sub-pages, and I'm going to introduce all of them briefly. This is Wortschatz, which is literally vocabulary, and this is the part that we are focusing on this video. This is Lesen, those are reading texts. This is journal entries, like I basically write some dumb stuff here. And those are my B2.2 notes, those are my B2.3 notes. And here is my notebook. Like, it's kind of temporary because I'm just listening to something or watching something and I just stumbled upon a phrase or a word and I just write it. And after I take all these phrases to my Wortschatz page, not here, and this is just like a draft, let's say. And those are my classes. B2.2 classes are completed, and right now I'm studying B2.3, and those are all KV German courses. Okay, and right now I want to introduce my vocabulary page on Notion, and I want to kind of talk about what I'm doing and why I'm doing the thing that I'm doing. So this is actually a whole archive of my German vocabulary. Here you can see that I have words and expressions, the meanings, the example sentences, which are basically the context of the vocabulary, and I also have the word type and the creation dates. If I realize that I know this word, I can simply delete it just to make it more clear on my vocabulary page. If you want to create something like this and save your vocabulary online, I can give a real quick tutorial. So just create a new page on Notion, and what we're doing is, let's say table, and we will create a table view. And then you will choose new database, and you are going to make this page by clicking here, small text and full width, so it will look like this. And then we will just add a title saying vocabulary, and here we are going to add all the properties. So this is basically a word, and here you can change this to text, and you can write meaning. And here you can change this to text again, and you can write example. And here you are going to choose this as multi-select, and we are going to add some options, like, and we are going to say word type to here, like this. And after that we are going to add creation time as a new property. And at the end we are going to say sort, and choose creation dates, and we're going to choose descending, so that whenever you want to add a new word, it will appear here and not at the bottom of the page. So basically, whenever I study German, I just have my notes here, and then I open this page, as you can see, and I just copy my notes. For example, in der Lage sein, and I'm just copying it here. And the meaning is in German Fähigkeit or Möglichkeit. I'm adding the meaning here. And then I have here an example sentence. I'm just copying it and pasting. And what I'm doing is, for example, in der Lage bist, this is the exact same phrase that I'm looking for. I will just make it red to make it more obvious when I'm looking. And then word type is basically a Funktionsverbgefüge. Verbgefüge. So as you can understand, that's how I save my new vocabulary. When I'm studying, I just study on Notion, I make this kind of notes, and at the end I just go back to my vocabulary section and save all this new vocabulary. So here is a text that I took from my Lingoda lessons about Nordic mythology, and I just copied and pasted here to Notion to analyze it in detail and also to answer those questions that I had. Writing something on the keyboard isn't as exhausting as writing it on a notebook, and actually that clearly defends the purpose of this video. And I also realized that I started studying more regularly ever since I switched to Notion. For example, on this text you may see that I have some vocabulary highlighted and some of them underlined, and you may ask what that means. Actually, that's my personalized way of learning vocabulary. Highlighted vocabulary means that I'm new to those vocabulary and I have to learn those, but underlined vocabulary means that I'm not new to those vocabulary, I actually recognize them, I can actually say what they mean, but those are my passive vocabulary, which means that I wouldn't really be able to use them in my speeches or in a text that I'm going to write. So I thought that it's really important to underline those vocabulary to differentiate them from the vocabulary that I really know. So for example, here you can see that I can understand what Kampfzustände means, but I'm not sure if I could use Kampfzustände in one of my phrases. That's why I underlined it, and right now as seeing it I can remember that it's better if I start using this vocabulary because I actually know it, but have never used. And then what I'm doing is that I just create a new page on ChatGPT and I ask ChatGPT to tell me the definition and some examples for each German vocabulary that I'm going to ask. After writing this prompt to ChatGPT, I'm going to copy those phrases on ChatGPT and I'm going to ask, for example, what does wehrte sich heftig dagegen means in this phrase? And then ChatGPT is going to give me the meaning in the context. And then, for example, I will just paste that phrase and I will ask what does einwilligen means, and then ChatGPT will explain me again. For example, you can see that Schluss machen means dass man eine Beziehung beendet, and here we have an example sentence produced by ChatGPT. If you're asking how I revise this vocabulary or how I make sure that I actually learn this vocabulary that I have on Notion, ChatGPT again, like... For example, recently I have been learning all of these Funktionsverbgefüge. And I asked ChatGPT to write me a dialogue using all these Funktionsverbgefüge, and I remember each one of them because of that dialogue. And another thing I like to use is a revision notebook. So a revision notebook is basically a second notebook that you use to rewrite your notes. While I study Russian, I use a revision notebook. How I use is that I just study, I write some grammar, I write some new vocabulary, and the next day I don't study, but I rewrite my notes to a revision notebook. So after seeing that a revision notebook helped me with Russian to remember the words, I got a revision notebook for German too. I use it whenever I want, like once a week maybe, because that's something that I use only to revise. That's not something I use to learn everything from scratch. That was everything that I wanted to tell in this video. I hope that I encourage you to give it a chance or take it into consideration using this kind of digital notes, because as I explained in this video, it helped me a lot to be more regular while studying German, and I hope that my ways of studying German vocabulary helped you, and I hope that also you can adapt those to your own learning and maybe you can remember the vocabulary easily. So if you have any other ways that you use to learn vocabulary in German or in your target language, please write them in the comments. Please like this video and share it with other people if you find it useful, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram for more updates. Thank you for watching this video and good luck with the language that you're learning.